All right, now we are going to kick off our pitch showcase, which I know many of you are here and very excited about. We have an incredible panel of judges, and I think Todd, get Todd on up here, and Dessy as well. We have our 8 founders who are in the second cohort of the WXR Mentorship and Accelerator program. So we're really, really excited to introduce you to all these companies. It was an incredibly competitive applicant pool, and each of these women really shone through and just blew us away with what they're building. So we have an incredible panel that I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves before we bring our first founders to the stage, so you have a sense of who's giving the feedback up here. So I'm going to hand the mic over and just do quick intros over here. If we want to start with Silka. Okay, tell us who you are.
Hi, thanks for inviting me here. It's great to be here. My name is Silka, and I'm head of emerging design at Adobe, and I spend a lot of time with startups, and I had my own startup once in a time.
Hi, I'm Alicia Garabedia. I'm an early stage seed investor at Samsung Next Ventures. Thanks so much for having me here. We invest in pre-seed to Series B companies that can leverage the Samsung ecosystem to scale their business.
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm an investor at Norwest Venture Partners. We're a multi-stage fund, but I focus on the venture side of things and specifically on enterprise and look at a lot of emerging tech, so excited to see what we have today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ajay. The easy way to remember that is a guy named Ajay. It comes with a rhyme. I am the managing partner of Happiness Ventures, the only venture fund focused on happiness. And I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Martina. And as a father of 2 daughters, I really want my girls to inherit a better future. So I'm hoping that we can co-create that together.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dessy Levinson. I'm the VP and head of story at 645 Ventures. We are an early stage investor located in New York City. We invest on both coasts. We do seed to Series A. My obsession is with AR, VR, and all the things that will take information and stories out of a screen and put it in our world, or let us go into their worlds. So I am also extremely excited and grateful to be here supporting WXR and the future they're building, one that is inclusive and thoughtful and kind. So I am really excited to see all the pitches.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Todd. I'm the CEO and founder of Vreal. I'm a repeat entrepreneur. I think it was 5 or 6 companies last time I checked. Prior to Vreal, I was actually on the executive team at Unity. I've been mentoring some of the WXR startups for a little while and having a lot of fun. It's a great cause.
Got turned off. Thank you all so much. We are so grateful to our judges. Can we give our judges a round of applause, please, for being here? Cannot wait to hear their feedback, and they've all been incredibly supportive. WXR would not be possible without the support of these incredible people. So I had a request from our stage manager if we could move forward a little bit so that our startups can really feel the audience support. If you feel comfortable just filling in a little forward, that would be awesome. So the format for today is going to be 5 minutes for pitching and then 5 minutes for feedback from the judges. So you'll get to hear some thoughts, and hopefully you can all learn from that as well. And of course, our founders always appreciate that. I'm not actually your MC for today. You are in for a treat because Malia is about to take the stage and take over for the afternoon. So I'm going to hand over the mic, and we'll get things started.
Thank you, Martina. Seriously, can we get the guys in the back and the ladies to move to the front? We're really here to be supportive. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Abby Albright. You're on my team. Get up here, Albright. Thank you so much to these amazing judges for coming and supporting and cheering on these female founders. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. So we kicked off the WXR Fund. We had the first cohort. We launched that back in January. We had the first pitch showcase, and we did that in VR. We did that in AltSpace, which is actually live streaming to AltSpace right now. So shout out to all my AltSpacers. We did it entirely in VR, and that was quite the technological event feat. Nothing went wrong, except one person's audio didn't work, but that's okay, just one. So we're gonna divide this pitch showcase into 2 parts today, okay? So we're gonna have 4 founders. They're gonna go one at a time. They're gonna do a 5-minute pitch, and then our illustrious judges are just gonna grill them. Just kidding, you guys are gonna be supportive. So we have, we're going to start out with Sophie Howe. We're going to have Veena Somareddy second. We're going to do Angelo Robert third. And then we're going to have a video call in from Neha Singh, who is in New York City. She could not join us, but we're going to get her on video. So put your hands together and welcome Sophie Howe from Xesto, all the way from Toronto to the stage. Yes. All right. I know it's a big step. Sophie, hey, there you are, girlfriend. Perfect.
All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Sophie. I'm the CEO and founder of Xesto, a gesture recognition startup. Let's see, where are we? Yes. So we make it really easy to make touchless applications. So gestures are more and more in demand. You've probably been walking around outside and thinking, oh, wow, I would really love for this to interact well with my hands. For example, swiping through an application, pinching to zoom, no controllers, essentially. So consumers are really starting to demand more natural user interfaces like voice recognition, and gestures really are just the next frontier. And this is to prove it. So in 2022, the gesture recognition market is going to reach about $20 billion, and the touchless gesture recognition market is going to be about $9 billion of that, going from what it was last year was just under $2 billion. So it's quite significant. And these are the industries that are already adopting them: VR and AR, of course, healthcare, the auto space, gaming, retail. But the problem with gesture recognition is that it's fundamentally difficult to do. Developers, content creators, companies have three options. One is they build the solution themselves. That takes up to 35% of development time, and it's device specific. So imagine you do something for one device, you have to do it all over again for the next device. For the second one, you can outsource it, and that can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and again, device specific. And then the third is you just abandon it, and I see that more often than I see people actually pursuing the other two options. So the content creation tools just really aren't there. So the solution is my company, Xesto. We're building a device-agnostic gesture recognition platform for developers. We're also going to be doing hand tracking as well. So we've started with Elite Motion, and we're going into iPhone 10 relatively soon in the summer, and other smartphones and other depth sensing cameras. So video time. Video. Is there a video? No? Click me? No. Okay, so no video apparently. So that was a demo of our of our solution. The way it works is you go online. I'll just take you through the slides then. You go online, click record, perform a gesture 10 times, and what that does is it trains a machine learning model to recognize that gesture. Then you can input it into your application within minutes. For us to become device agnostic, all we're going to need are depth sensing cameras, so we do require depth for more accuracy, and yeah, just perform a gesture in under a minute. And there's endless use cases. Because it's a developer tool, you can use it wherever you want. So I want you to think about, if you can train a gesture with 10 examples, what will you be able to do with 500,000 of the exact same example, or exact same gesture? So we're building our machine learning training set search tool, where you put in a few examples, and it intelligently identifies other models that exist in the database, and it trains off of them and trains iteratively and automatically. This is something exciting in machine learning that we're working on, so I'm really excited to be bringing this to the company in about, I want to say we'll be making it public in December, but I don't know. So why now? Content creation tools are really necessary for pushing forward this industry. Without tools like Nuance, I don't think voice recognition would be where it is right now. And gestures really are the next frontier, and we want to make that completely frictionless, and we want to put that in the hands of developers, content creators, and companies to do this. Our roadmap, like I mentioned, we're on the Elite Motion, but we're going to be on the iPhone 10 within a month or two, and we'll be expanding outwards. We're going to be getting the gestures into the hands of about 200,000 people, we're hoping, within the next year. at the very least, and expanding onto as many devices as possible, both the hand tracking and the gesture platform. My team, like we mentioned, we're up from Toronto, and we are actually from the University of Toronto, where there's a lot of research that's happening in machine learning, so we leverage that quite a bit. And I think you would recognize one of our advisors, Tom. So yeah, some final thoughts. Voice recognition is here to stay, and gestures are really the next frontier, and we want to be the ones to do that. Thank you.
Awesome, Sophie, thank you. And you're just gonna have to describe to us how those gestures work, I guess. I'm gonna kick it over to the judges. I'm gonna pass the mic to Silka Miesnieks.
Great pitch, thank you. That was very clear and easy to follow. First, I have a question before I have any advice or anything else to provide. What are some of your use cases? Because you talk about gestures, and we all know a sense on its own, I'd love to see how you think gesture works with other senses and what are the use cases for them.
So one of my most, the initial thought is VR. I don't think that we need controllers and those dyno hands, those static dyno hands, to interact with virtual reality. And then in augmented reality, if you're going to be interacting with an augmented world, why are you touching a screen? You should just be using your hands, and it should be immersive and reactive. So those are two big use cases. The auto space, they're really moving towards touchless dashboards. Touchless dashboards, as well as, if you think about it, in autonomous vehicles, we're not going to be interacting with the same interface. So I don't even know what self-driving cars are going to look like, but I know that they're going to have a technology like this.
How are you attracting developers to your platform?
So we're going to have a freemium model, so free for hobbyists that are really interested in tinkering around with it, and professional tier. We go to a lot of hackathons, so we get people really excited by that, and developers really like to talk amongst each other. It's just a developer thing. It's like word of mouth is just viral. Something cool just spreads like wildfire. So we just really want to incentivize people to use it.
Got it. And how far along are you in the business today?
So we are going to be raising our seed in September. So we're just 6 people now, and we're launching our beta for the Leap Motion within the week or two, and just expanding out into our other platforms.
Okay. And then just a quick question on background. How did you get started? How did you and the co-founder meet?
So we met in university where he was working with Microsoft Connect, and we realized that it sucked. Doing gestures on the Connect was not an easy thing to do. So we realized we thought we would just fix that and then fix that for other people. That was around the time when Oculus was bought, so we were like, things are going to be changing. Interfaces just aren't going to be the same, so we'll be there when it's happening.
Cool.
Awesome, great pitch, and I'm also Canadian, so I love meeting fellow Canadians that are building companies. Awesome pitch. 2 pieces of feedback. The first really hits on what we were talking about earlier with use cases. Something that we look for on the enterprise side in early stage companies is that they've gone and talked to some of the potential customers and had them iterate and give feedback on their specs. And that can really help refine what use cases you initially go after. So a bit more color on that would be great. And then the other piece is details around when you're going to be funding and what milestones you want to hit at that point and how much you'd be raising. That's always good to include, but great pitch, huge market, and it looks like you have some early conversations with good customers.
Thanks.
Totally echo the feedback there, and to piggyback on point number 2, how much exactly are you trying to raise, and where does it get you?
So we're raising just between $1.7 and $2 million, and that'll get us to hand tracking and that machine learning search tool that I mentioned.
Okay.
So that'll really help us
and the
scale.
100,000 plus users, or the 200,000 plus users that you mentioned?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
That takes us there. And then after that is where we would have the Series A.
Got it. And how accurate is the system right now in terms of kind of correctly recognizing a gesture, and what percentage of the time does it do that versus fail? And what actions are you taking to kind of minimize or mitigate that user frustration that comes from a lack of recognition?
So right now, for 10 examples, we get just over 85% accuracy, which for machine learning, if anybody's train a
very
machine
good.
learning model, like you need a lot. So that's really exciting for us. And that's just on our prototype of the machine learning classification. So we're adding more machine learning classifiers to that. And then, like I mentioned, the trace, our search tool, that's going to be that thing that really pushes it forward, where you put in a few examples, like 5 examples, 7 examples, and that identifies out of like a database of hundreds of thousands of gestures what to train off of. So it'll just be exponentially growing.
And have you thought about addressing kind of the hearing impaired market and sign language?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I have.
Cool.
So congratulations. This was a really good pitch, and congratulations on building something with great accuracy and that is already gaining word of mouth. I want to dig in a little deeper around the market and the market sizing, but also from a bottom-up perspective. All the different companies who will want to use gestures. Basically, I would suggest building a case study or just walking us through one idea of, if I'm Sephora and I want to add gestures to my app, what would that mean? Meaning, how will the consumer better interact with the product? How does it improve their ability to buy? We all know that we want to use our hands and we want technology to kind of disappear and become seamless. But what does that actually mean toward bottom line for the brands and the companies that will be using this? So if you can go deeper in your presentation in the long run, in 1 or 2 verticals, then it will help people understand that this is not a new thing that is, that you have to convince consumers or potential customers that they need this, but that it is actually going to amplify a behavior that's already exists and make it more functional or create better ROI.
Great pitch. It wasn't crystal clear to me how you're going to go after developers, because that really feels like you're building something for developers, right? At Unity we had a tool that was widely available for free, and it was kind of bottoms up, and so we got developers through word of mouth, like you said. But you put a lot of big brands up there, which kind of makes me feel like more of an enterprise, top-down type thing. So it might be good to kind of talk a little bit through that. If it is a bottoms-up play, then you really have to go and raise money after you actually have something in beta in market, and then you can talk about the virality of the tool and who's using it. If it's a top-down play, then you really have to talk about what a enterprise go-to-market strategy looks like. I didn't quite get there, but you're also super early, so that's understandable. But yeah, great pitch. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Veena Somareddy from Dallas, Texas. Here she is. Put your hands together for Veena. Pass it on off.
Hi, I'm Veena, the co-founder and CTO of Neuro Rehab. We are here to introduce you to the next generation of rehabilitation. Let's meet one of our patients, Joe. He had a stroke, which led to one of his hands being paralyzed. He cannot really move his fingers. But somehow, when he scratches his head at a certain spot, the fingers on his paralyzed hands open up. This has astonished the medical community. It also suggests that the connection between the motor cortex in his brain to his limbs does exist. He just needs to tap into it. More than 800,000 people in the United States alone suffer from a stroke each year, leading to long-term disability. There is hope for Joe and others. Recent advancements in neuroplasticity suggest that your brain has the ability to fully recover from a stroke. That is, the healthy parts of your brain can take over the functionalities of the damaged areas. But this requires extensive physical therapy and cognitive training. So Joe, he wants to get better. But physical therapy is expensive. Clinics are far and apart, so transportation is a problem. And on most days, he's too depressed to get out of bed. And on the days he does make it to the clinic, therapy lasts for about an hour, and he finds it boring. That is why we create virtual reality applications. That's supposed to be a video. Oh, I guess. Okay. That's why we create virtual reality applications for physical and cognitive therapy, leveraging the breakthroughs in neuroplasticity. We're housed inside one of the largest robotic therapy clinics in the United States, which means that our target demographic are right across the hall. Our applications are tested by our patients and a therapist from the initial stages of development and iterated according to their feedback. Research shows that exercises with functional goals and targeted repetition can increase and form new neural pathways in your brain, and our games are designed to do exactly that. To make all this happen, we have an amazing team. I have more than 6 years of experience as a software engineer and a researcher working in the medical domain for VR. Bruce Conti, a serial entrepreneur who has many successful ventures. He started the Neurological Recovery Center 3 years ago when his son suffered a traumatic brain injury and now is helping hundreds of patients get better. Eric Yates, a physical therapist who has worked with patients with spinal cord and traumatic brain injury. Dr. Brian Wood, who is a medical doctor with more than 10 years of experience treating patients with brain injury and other neurological diseases. We also have amazing people with medical device manufacturing and clinical sales and marketing people on our team. And of course, easy access to the know-how and subject matter expertise of many amazing therapists. To sell our applications, we have subscription-based model with one-time equipment setup and training fees for clinics. However, one of my favorite patients who loves to play VR stopped coming by a few weeks ago, and I later found out it was because insurance would not pay for his treatment anymore. There are thousands of individuals with the same problem who need an affordable solution to continue their therapies at home. For them, we would have direct-to-consumer sales. To truly scale, we'll leverage our existing physician networks and then approach big hospital and physical therapy groups that have thousands of clinics across the US. Till now, we have created 4 applications which target different parts of the body and the brain, including MindMove, which uses EEG brainwaves to control a virtual avatar. We also have a data analytics system so that patients and doctors can review their progress quantitatively. And since all of our games are so data-driven, we are also using machine learning models to find better solutions and efficient and a faster way to recovery, which is customized for each patient. Our applications have been tested by more than 50 patients and in daily use. Even though our target demographic are the patients, it's very important that the therapists embrace the technology because they are the ones who create the therapy goals and plans for the patients. So I'm proud to announce that the therapists I work with love VR and think it's helping their patients. We have 2 pending patents and are halfway through our FDA authorization. Even though we are a young startup, we have more than 9 clinics who approached us wanting our applications, so we will be rolling out to them first and then scale from there. We'll also be conducting clinical trials so that we can show the efficacy of our applications. We have research collaborations with these institutions where we're working on furthering the research in neuroscience. At Neuro Rehab VR, we're trying to disrupt the way physical therapy is done by using cutting-edge technology and advancements in neuroscience so that we can bring down the cost of therapy, make it more efficient, and within the reach of everybody who needs it so that Joe and millions of others like him can lead a happy and independent life. Thank you.
That was an awesome presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Really well put together. And I'm excited to see how you're delving into an area that in my line of work I'm seeing more and more people delve into, where you're seeing ways that sensors in our bodies can be used in different ways for healing and other purposes. We don't really understand that much about that yet. So it's good to see that work being done.
Thank you.
I think the biggest challenge that you are going to have, if you're not already, is with getting approval and getting it into medical institutions and going through all that like long red tape and issues around that.
So we are, I had more slides. Are they there?
So have you solved that problem? You can just tell us.
I had like 10 more slides, but okay. We are in class 2 exempt device, so we don't have to go through FDA approval. All we have to do is FDA register and list our devices. So like I said, it'll take us about another month to get all of that done.
Okay. Well, that helps. So then maybe the hardest thing is distribution, which is a good, that's not quite as hard, but still in the medical field.
Right, like
challenge.
I said, it was on my slide. We'll use the physician networks that we have because we have a clinic associated with it, and then go to Health South or USPH, which USPH alone has, which is US Physical Therapy, has 500 clinics across the US. So it's a good way to scale.
Okay, thank you.
Also, great pitch. Can you dive into the clinical trials a little bit more and the rationale behind having 4 different applications versus just one? I don't know much about this space, but I'm assuming that it would be easier to test the efficiency and efficacy of a clinical trial for one application so that you can measure over time, like, hey, we had 100 patients use this for X amount of time, and this was the percentage increase in their brain cognition and performance. So would love a little bit more information there.
I wish I had my slides.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
It's good. So we have 4 applications. Like I said, with stroke patients, it's not just one part of the body that you're working on. You're working on your cognitive, you're working on shoulder therapy, and especially spinal cord injury patients lose lower body control. So that's why we have one for shoulder therapy, one for gait training, one just using your just using your mind to control your virtual avatar, and then a game that you can use your legs to kick. So when a patient comes in, just one application is not enough to get them to recovery. So we had to create more. And this is also from the therapists kind of come to me and ask, can you do this for us? So that's how we kept adding on. And we have just scratched the surface as to the number of applications we'll create.
Okay. How many patients? You said 50 patients. Are those paying customers yet, or have you?
Right. So we, like I said, we are associated with the clinic. So what they do on a trial basis, we'll let them use it. And then our physical therapists can also make it as part of their therapy. So that's what's happening. But when it comes to insurance, right now what we're doing is we have identified the CPT codes that you would need for insurance payouts. If it's a gait training application, you put it under gait training, and we're getting paid by insurance.
Okay.
And we'll probably follow the same model, but also try and get special CPT codes.
And what are you actually providing to the clinics? Is it the hardware and then your own proprietary software?
Right. So the clinics will have the hardware with our software on it, and also how to get paid for it through insurance. So there'll be a whole package.
Got it. Great.
Great presentation. Really enjoyed it. What we actually look for with a lot of these emerging technologies is applications where the technology itself makes a use case cheaper, more effective, more flexible, and you're hitting on all of those. So I commend you on finding strong ROI for immersive technology. One of the comments I had, and I'd love to get your feedback and thoughts on this because I'm not an expert on the space, but how the business model will work and if insurance is involved at all in measuring the outcomes and helping to supplement either the at-home version or the clinics. Because I know that I hear from my healthcare investors that can be pretty complex. So just some detail on that would be great.
Okay. If you, I will tell you about it, and I do have slides for it later. So with insurance, how it works right now is for physical therapy, you have to be prescribed by an actual physician who will refer you to a clinic. And for Medicare, it costs about $3,800 for like 3 months of therapy, which is about 7 to 8 treatments. It lasts for 3 hours, which is nowhere near to what people actually need. That's how it is done. But to get paid for insurance, you have to show them that they're making progress, and that's where our analytics system will be very useful to show them this is exactly the progress they're making, and you can get paid for it. And then, like, there are different measurements, like gross muscle test, and then how much flexion and extension is made. So, yeah, there are different ways to measure that.
That's great. Really thoughtful. Thank you.
So you mentioned the CPT codes. Have you, are there established CPT codes that you can utilize today, or do you need to establish and create new ones?
Okay, so the CPT codes, how it works right now is there are codes under physical rehabilitation. So there are different ones for gait training, shoulder therapy, lower extremity training. So we're using the same ones that are already there. But as a business model, we would try to establish another one which is specific to VR in using for therapy.
Yeah, because if you use the existing CPT codes, then you're actually competing with the physical therapist that is your gateway to the patient. So I think that's something that you have to figure out how you manage that, because you'll be cutting into that total pie of revenue that the physical therapist would be generating.
Right. But also, they're able to treat more patients this way, and then it's cutting down their time also, so it's more efficient.
So more volume of patients.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Congratulations, and thank you for building something that is already positively affecting people's lives and making a difference. That is very commendable. I thought also that it was a great presentation, and you got us to care about the individual customer's journey and about how their lives are being changed. So that was very effective. I would love to hear more about how you said you're going after the initial clinics who are interested in trialing this, but how do you see educating therapists and clinics around the potential of VR? I know a lot of them are already interested and they can sense that there is, a lot of momentum and potential there. But how do you see your role in basically educating and defining that market and even potentially creating a new market segment?
Okay, we concentrate on the value proposition of all this, show them with our clinical trials the efficacy of our application, how much time they're saving and how much more money they can make. And then also maybe go to insurance and companies and show them you can save $1 billion a year if you use this product. So insurance companies will also be in that way. And then for therapists, it's mostly the ease of use and portability, and patient engagement is the biggest concern in physical therapy. Like I said, I've seen that if there's a tiny bit of rain, appointments are canceled. But now people are more excited about coming to the clinic and trying VR. So that's where the therapists also like it. And it took a while for them to start using it on their own. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, but they get it really quickly. And the best part about all of this is when I give them this tool, I tell them this is how we use it, but the therapists have found different ways that I could never think of, which I can show you videos later.
So it's actually very powerful, the story that the individual customers are requesting or are getting excited about engaging with VR, and that is making them more active and eager participants in their own therapy. So I do recommend including that in your presentation and talking about that, because it's a very powerful statement that the end user is actually more willing to be positively minded and to participate in their own therapy in a more engaged way.
Okay, thanks.
Obviously not ideal for this forum, but if you were actually pitching, have you thought about including, like, this is the kind of amount we're raising, and more important than the amount is what milestones would this financing get you to? Like, you talked about clinical trials. Is it going to get you to cash flow positive, or where will the capital get you to?
Okay. Thank you.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you, Veena. All right. We have Angela Robert up next. She's coming all the way from Nova Scotia. Here you are. And
Thank you.
This is part of the test. We want to see how you react when your videos don't play. It's part of being a successful entrepreneur. So extra marks on that one, Veena. Good job.
Can you guys hear me? Okay, perfect. So it's not Nova Scotia, I'm from Vancouver, but we do have a studio in Nova Scotia too, so thank you. All right, so I'm Angela Robert. I'm the CEO of Conquer Experience, and I'm here to talk to you about our award-winning product called Periop Sim. And Periop Sim is an application that teaches operating room nurses what instrument to pass to a surgeon during surgery. So you guys all hear about how surgeons sometimes have bad behavior, throw an instrument, get pissed off when they don't get the instrument at the right time. This is meant to give the new nurses training in an extremely stressful environment a way to practice before they go in. Now, perioperative nursing is a term most people don't know. It's the same as an operating room nurse, so I use them interchangeably, but sometimes it confuses people if I don't tell you guys up front. Now, how we came to develop the product is we met with a neurosurgeon and a neuroscientist that built a brain surgery simulator that is now licensed and sold by the world's biggest healthcare simulation company called CAE Healthcare. They came to us because they said, there's new digital technology out here, you're an expert in gaming, and we want to build something that's going to impact a lot more people, and there's 6 times as many nurses as surgeons. So we got really, really excited about this opportunity. Now, the problem that we're solving is there's a massive nursing shortage. You guys hear about it in Canada. Hospitals or operating rooms get shut down because there's not enough people to staff them. 50% are over the age of 50. There's increasing complexity for procedures with all these great medical device companies coming out with new things. And basically what's happening is that they're being asked, because of all the operational cuts, they're being asked to train more people in less time, and that impacts patient safety, and that's why educators are really caring about what we're doing. Now, what we do is an in-hospital subscription, so the target is $1,000 per nurse per year. It's sold to the hospital. Operating room nurses, it takes them about 6 months to train on the job. They're not trained in university, on the job. And the typical model is they'll do a learning management system, then they go into rotations with a preceptor. And what we do is we cut that time in half. So we can provide simulation for half the time, and then they're paired with a preceptor for the rest of the time. And how we do that is 1 hour-long procedure in VR, as well as on the iPad. We cut that down into 10 minutes with our methodology. Now, how we're different. So I talked a little bit about how we're different in terms of we're focused on nurses, not surgeons. We're focused on selling into the hospital and not schools. The other way that we're different is we're really focused on how do we maximize learning. So we've got 5 years of research with neuroscientists, and we're continuing to build out that program. And my goal is to get the most information into someone's head, and when they're retested later, when they need to recall it, it's retained better than current learning methods, and our research is showing that already. Now, from a customer perspective, we've got revenue, over $200,000 in revenue. We've been selling for the last 2 years. So we built the VR version before the iPad. So this is about 5 years ago. We needed VR to catch up, so we decided to go to market with the iPad. And what we've been seeing is we've got marquee hospitals like Johns Hopkins, we've got hospital systems, and people are doing renewals as well as upgrading into larger educational programs and adopting VR as well. So we've got about four VR customers already. Now, our team is a former Electronic Arts, so Vancouver is very well known for being really strong in simulation. My co-founder, Dave, he was responsible for 60 SKUs worldwide for quality assurance. So this is FIFA, this is Need for Speed, so some of the biggest titles that EA produced. Dave and I have worked together for over 6 years. Bruce, we talked about it the other day, we've been working together for over 15 years. He's followed me in 3 companies, 5 different roles. He's our technical director. Then we've got Josh in Halifax, so heading up content production. We've got a 3-year partnership with Nova Scotia Health Authority to do 100 procedures. Our clinical advisory board spans Canada and the US, as well as the WHO. So Bonnie in the middle, she's a perioperative nurse and educator. She's helping to write the WHO guidelines for surgical site infections. And then another one I'll mention is Dr. Teo Daggy. So he's at the highest level at the American College of Surgeons and on the Council for Perioperative Safety. And Dr. Clark on the left is the neurosurgeon that did the brain surgery simulator I mentioned before. From an investment and milestone perspective, we're closing our seed round $1 million Canadian, so any US investors, you get a deal, June 30th. And what we're gonna do with that money is really build up our 2 global healthcare channels, which we're expecting to close at the end of this month, doing a full launch of PeriOpSim and VR in the fall, and then getting to 1,000 learners and tripling our average per seat price. And I'll leave you guys with this. So this is Sarah from Stanford. She is the manager for perioperative education, and what we're doing is really, really going to impact her and what they're doing in terms of adding new procedures, higher technology, and being able to scale and bring on the next generation. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna put Todd on the hot seat first here. Todd, you thought you got off easy.
Well, I'm going to steal the question that they were going to ask, which was, anytime I hear health, and I've only ever really been involved with one company in the space, but FDA regulation, clinical trials.
We're education.
So
exempt.
Exempt.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
This is why I went into the business. I would have said no way I'd go
Great.
if it wasn't this way.
Great, and you should probably put that in the deck.
Okay.
So preempt that question.
Great tip.
You know, these guys might disagree, but I wouldn't mention the revenue number. I'd just say you've got revenue and you've got these customers and they're paying customers, and the number is just a detail that you go to later.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't actually disagree, especially at the early stage. It's important to mention the relationships you have with your customers, and I like the fact that some of them were resubscribing, so that's a powerful signal, and I would, maybe mention it earlier, say that your engagement with, all of these reputable hospitals who are subscribers, some of whom are joining a different tier, or some of whom are becoming VR subscribers as well. Those are powerful signals. My question would be around the market size. Hospitals constantly complain about budgets and the cuts they need to make. I understand that they also do need to educate their nurses, and that this is potentially saving them both time and efficiency. But maybe talking about that, about what piece of the pie of wallet share are you going after, and then maybe the de-risking of if their nurses perform better, then potentially they are less liable. It will cost them less in lawsuits or other issues. So talking about basically what risk you're offsetting by educating nurses really well.
Yeah, definitely. And from a market size perspective, we're looking at similar to EA, right? Starting off in your niche, you've got your well-defined niche in the OR. And we're looking to scale that in North America first, and then going to the developed countries and then undeveloped countries. And from a market opportunity perspective, we're looking at 1.7 billion of ARR, with about 15% of the market globally, with more nurse training. And in terms of the de-risking, so this is from insurance and all of that, this is something I'd love an advisor on. So it's something sort of on the roadmap, and I want to dig into that a lot more, because we have been very focused on giving time back as well as saving money in their existing, because they're forced to spend these dollars regardless. And they're starting to have to pay more for retention and retaining the nurses because they're leaving. And so that particular area is an area I'd love to dig into.
So yeah, I would suggest actually having a slide and going after, basically showing where is the money being spent now, and what portion of it are you taking, and then what is the multiple on their investment that they're getting back, both in terms of, educated nurses and, less insurance payouts and things like that.
Yeah, thank you. That's great.
Thanks. Great pitch, and I'd love to learn a little bit more about the lessons that you've learned from all of those amazing customers that you've signed, because that must have been a collaborative process where you've learned a lot and gained a number of insights around what works in your platform and doesn't. Be curious to hear kind of what lessons you've learned there. And then the big question that I had throughout the entire presentation was just how big does your business get, and how quickly does it get there? So kind of a go-to-market question. How do you build the business?
Yeah, so I think on the building the business and even the sales, right, and how to sell more and impact people more in terms of providing more value. And so what we've been focused on is I've been working very bottom up, top down. And what we did early on is we partnered and did a pilot with AORN, so the biggest association for operating room nurses, 18-month pilot. We were included in their curriculum. They own 20% of the market. And we got amazing feedback from there. Additionally, at all of their conferences, I think it's been about 1,500 nurses, educators, and managers that we've talked to about the product at those events. They all got to try it out and give us feedback. And from a sales perspective, a lot of our early sales were done using the predictable revenue model, so Aaron Ross's Salesforce scaling, because we went to market with something that was fast and light for them to get started. A nurse can get set up in 30 minutes. And what we've been doing now that we've got all of those sort of customers in on this package, we called it a starter package because we only had a certain amount of content to start with. But now what we're doing is we're looking beyond the brand new nurse orientee, and we're looking at maintaining proficiency. So if there is, like an example, I was talking to one director, and he has 17 hospitals, and of those 17 hospitals, there are 6 that have trauma centers. And 1 out of the 6 are very confident if people come in with a neuro issue. So any of the nurses that are covering that shift, and there's a burr hole or craniotomy trauma that someone needs to do, 1 out of the 6 is confident that their nurses staff know the instruments and know that procedure to help out in an emergency situation. And so in these trauma shifts that people are covering, what they need is a way for them to spend 30 minutes twice a year to do that. And so from a market and growth perspective, we started off with the new orientee nurses, the ones in the first 6 months, and now we're moving to, instead of 10 people per year, we're moving to 300 in big hospitals.
So I actually love that you mentioned the revenue number. And reason being, I think that I love bottoms-up market analysis. I think it's a really thoughtful way to be able to figure out how big your company can possibly get. And I think having early ASP numbers from customers and knowing how much they're willing to pay is a really thoughtful way to say, okay, how many possible customers are there out there? What percentage do I think I can get? Here's how much my current early customers are paying me. Here's how much I think they could pay me. And then you come to a really thoughtful analysis of how big this could get. And we just eat that up. Yeah. So I really like that, and great pitch overall. Really, really love this application. I think training is going to be the biggest application in the enterprise. So great work.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. So we are really excited about immersive education. We think that you hit the nail on the head. You're having a lot of neuroscientists back up this this idea and this hypothesis that if you are immersed in this experience, you can learn and retain information so much faster and quicker and recall it in the future. So a lot of the same questions that the rest of the panel had here. But what are hospitals doing today? Like, who are their main competitors in this space? Who are they looking to? Is this all classroom training or operating experience training?
So the model is like AORN, who I mentioned. They have a product called Peri-Op 101, and they own about 20% of the market. And it's a learning management system. But after they do the didactic training, they need to go in and do the rotations. And those rotations are all on the job shadowing. And so, when we first went to look at the starter pack, it's the testing out what price would work. But now we're looking at, okay, so the hourly rate for a nurse is, say, on average. There's, of course, areas like here that they pay a lot more, but it's $30 per hour, and a preceptor is $40 per hour. So from an experience hour perspective and what we're selling, we're comparing those two things. And so my co-founder, Dave, he loves to say this all the time, it's the system's constrained by people. And so anytime a system's constrained by people, the only way you can really look at solving the problem is to use technology or some way to make it happen a lot more efficiently. And so that's really the area that we're solving, is how do we get those people with experience? And if there's all those people retiring as well, and there's not enough preceptors already and a shortage of educators, we need to capture this in a digital format so that, the knowledge is not left, right? Because there is, in a lot of hospitals, there's a lot of, older people ready to retire, and then there's a lot of new people, but nobody really in the middle. So that's the challenge they have.
And so you started off with the VR, and then you moved to the iPad. Did you find that, and then your roadmap says that you're moving back to VR? Do you think you can train more nurses with the iPad versus using the VR experience? And then have you done any studies to say the iPad teaches as efficiently as the VR experience?
So we use it as more of a tool, like the iPad versus VR. We use it as more of a tool to satisfy, like from a product roadmap perspective, to satisfy certain types of customers. And it's all cloud driven, so we have everything I learned from building video games, we've done it like 10 times better and more efficient because of new technology. But everything's in the cloud, so everything's pushed to any device. So, you know, we could do a mobile version, we could do an AR version, and with VR in particular, so most people don't realize it, but VR's been done over 10 years in healthcare simulation. And so that's where we won the prize there, because now with the new VR, the new digital, I call it digital simulation, you can simulate things that weren't possible before. So there's a big greenfield opportunity here. And what we do is, from a positioning perspective, it's easy to sell an iPad to an OR. You know, we can ship them the hardware set up in 30 minutes, but when you've got a VR setup, you need a simulation center, you're running Windows. It's gonna take, you know, a lot more to get, to maintain that package. And so looking at that enterprise sale and how that is going to work over time is one of my top things I'm working on right now. And initially we didn't sell any of the VR version. It was more prototypes and testing. So we went direct to market on the iPad, and we've had some of the, you know, research or super early adopters working with us.
Great. Again, great pitch, solid. You were very confident and articulate in all your answers, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to say the team that you've put together and the advisors that you have, I mean, I look at the team first whenever I get pitched by a startup, and you have a stellar team. So that says a lot to what you're doing. The other thing I really loved is just how niche focused you are. It's very easy to boil the ocean. It's really easy as a startup. But you are staying in one niche area, which means that you can grow, you can focus on growing the market, the same people across the world. So
It's hard to stay niche, though.
It's so hard. It's so hard, and I know that. So that's why I'm particularly pulling that point out. And I think it's a good thing. It seems really good right now, especially. You have got a revenue of 200,000. Is that recurring every year and increasing?
Yeah, so we've got a portion of that is recurring every year. So one of the ways that we've done, instead of you know, getting investment to fund content creation, we've been able to have our customers fund content creation. And so there's some portion that's non-recurring, and then some that is recurring.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why get funding at all? Sorry, I'm not a VC. So I'm like, you have a good position, you got a solid position, there's other ways you can keep that recurring, increase the recurring money coming in and keep expanding. It just wasn't clear to me, what do you want only $1 million for, which is not much to ask for considering all the...
We're Canadian.
10 companies.
It's a Canadian round.
Up. You've got 10 hospitals in your list on the screen, and you said 4 of them are VR customers already. You've got a revenue, and you're only asking for $1 million. So that didn't. I was a little confused about that and what you actually plan to do with only $1 million. Sorry, I know it's a lot of money, but.
Yeah, the big thing that we need, because we're in healthcare, right? So everyone talks about selling to healthcare and how expensive that is, and a lot of that money is going to be spent on sales and marketing. We've got a very very strong plan going into next year, and we really need to maintain our lead. So for the first time ever, so I've been doing this for 5 years, the first time ever, I'm in like a competitive protection mindset, right? I want to protect my lead. I think we've done a great job at, you know, working with some of the best in the industry. And as well, content. Content is king in this space. The more content I have, the more I can charge. And right now I'm constrained at, you know, getting the customers to do that. But I've got, you know, a team, and I've got a hospital system ready to build the 100 surgeries. And so that's really, really key for us.
So the money's going to go into customer acquisition?
Yes,
Really?
yeah,
Okay.
a really big portion. And then from an R&D perspective, we've got some really strong and interesting R&D that we're doing with like the neuroscientist and on VR versus, like you were talking, VR versus iPad, as well as, you know, pushing the boundaries on the personalized and layered learning and seeing, you know, how we can show that value more tightly with the population that we're training.
So I would fund you based on your team. But I know people who are in the industry, know this really well and fund healthcare startups. So come talk to me after.
Okay, thank you.
All right, put your hands together for Angela,
Thank you, guys.
Robert with Conquer Experiences.